Good morning and welcome to The Extra Point here on ESPN 1600. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, and as always, I'm joined with Jeremy Coleman from Indiana, Justice Gordon from New York, and Robert Parker from New Jersey. And on today's episode, once again, we have a special treat for all of you out there. We have a guest on The Extra Point, and that guest is wide receiver for the Arizona Rattlers, Isaiah Houston. Isaiah, welcome to The Extra Point. How are we doing today?
I'm good, man. How about you? How about yourself?
Hey, we are doing great, and we are beyond excited to have you on here with the team on The Extra Point. So let's get right at it. You know, you are a wide receiver with the Arizona Rattlers, but of course you are on the path to make your way to the NFL. So to give the folks a little bit of history about yourself, where did you get your collegiate career started?
So I started at Arizona State University. I redshirted there. Ended up breaking my jaw in a freak accident in practice. Took a hit on the side of the face mask. Broke my jaw in two places. So that led me to I ended up leaving Arizona State, and my old high school coach ended up becoming the offense coordinator at a little NAIA school here in Phoenix called Arizona Christian University. And so that's where I ended up finishing my college career and playing out my sophomore, junior, and senior season over at Arizona Christian University in Phoenix.
Wow, that's a pretty freak thing to have there with the jaw. So how's the jaw feeling these days?
Oh, it's good to go. Everything's healthy, 100% good. But it was a freak accident at the time. The doctor said they it must have hit in the right spot because that usually doesn't happen. So freak accident, but I'm good and healthy now. So
good deal. Good deal. Now, when you were at Arizona Christian University, you played exceptional ball, and it caught the eye of a couple of teams. Give our listeners some insight to some teams, NFL teams that had some interest in you.
Yes. So at the end of my junior year, I actually worked out for the Panthers and the Cardinals. They came by and tested me and one other receiver in the 40, the measurements or whatnot. And then my senior year, I really started to get a lot of interest from the Detroit Lions. They came by the school twice for me within the matter of the first three games. And also the Indianapolis Colts had came by, spoke with me as well after the first three games of the season.
So, hey, teams like that don't just show up on your doorstep to say, hey, how you doing today? I want to talk to you. So evidently you did something exceptionally well that caught their attention. So what, as a wide receiver, do you think that you do well that has caught their attention?
So the Detroit Lions scout told me straight up, my releases and my burst off the ball was elite. Something that he, in his own word, he hadn't seen too many people with the type of release and get off the ball ability that I have. And so I think just my route running, my explosiveness, and just my ability to create separation consistently on every single play, no matter what the route is, what the coverage is. The fact that, I can get open consistently.
Want to dive a little bit more into your football background. I have some experience recruiting from Indiana University. Just kind of wanted to see how your recruiting went and how you originally ended up getting to Arizona State.
Yeah. So in high school, I got recruited by a lot of big-time schools. UCLA, Michigan State, where a couple of the bigger schools recruited me as well, ASU and U of A. And I just wanted to stay home, and I ended up building a good relationship with Aaron Pflugrad at the time, who was an assistant receiver coach at Arizona State. So that's kind of how and why I ended up at Arizona State initially.
You kind of went in detail about the broken jaw being a freak incident. And, for many out there who don't know, you also suffered a lacerated kidney, which is another freak injury. I read up on a little article, which I thought was interesting. And in it, it said, when you came back initially from the lacerated kidney, you initially tested, I think it was a 28-inch vert, and you barely just ran under a 4.5 40. And then
4 or 5. Yeah, you give me some good numbers right there. Initially, after my injury, I had lost like 30 pounds. I couldn't do anything for like 4 months. When originally they were going to remove my kidney when I first got to the hospital, it was that bad. By the grace of God, he played I'm real big on my faith. He played a big role in just the whole process, and I ended up getting to keep my kidney. And but yeah, so after that, I knew I had to get ready. I had pro day coming up, and I knew I wanted to play at the next level. So in December, I had met this gentleman named Chad Ike, who's my trainer now. And he was in the Olympics and training pro athletes for like 30 years, so he's really good at what he does. But I met him at just the right time because, like you said, man, I was jumping 28 vertical the first day of testing, 5 flat 40, like just right out of bed, smooth, fat, like out of shape. It was tough at first, definitely coming back.
Yeah, I saw also to piggyback off of that, after you went back to training after that, you improved your vert 10 inches to a 38 vert, and you came all the way down to a 4.5.
Correct.
That's very impressive. Yeah. I'm kind of wondering, your mindset during all that. Your initial numbers when you first came back and you had those, bad numbers. Was that any motivation to you? Knowing how good of an athlete you were.
That's funny that you say that. So when I first came back and I met Chad, my trainer, he had a group of about 5 or 6 guys he was training for their pro day, including my boy John Otsua, who plays for the Seahawks, currently receiving, running back from Louisville. So a couple of big-time athletes. And the first day, they're testing, not great, but like pretty good. And the way I was testing, I'm like, man, I know these guys think I suck, man. Like, in my own head, I'm like, I'm really that dude. But I knew I had a lot of work to put in and just kind of had to prove it to myself, that I could stay committed and persevere. And, so I definitely did that and got back to where I needed to be. So it was definitely a process, though. It was tough.
Yeah, that's some awesome stuff right there, Isaiah. And I'd just like to follow up Justice's question by saying I'm also big on my faith as well. So could you explain to our audience in regards to, coming back from a laceration of a kidney, and could you compare that to training during the pandemic, the COVID year? So could you, compare and contrast the two different, styles where, you're training to come back and then now you're trying to train during the pandemic?
Right. So training coming back from the kidney, that was just about really just putting, he has a great program to where I knew if I followed it, I showed up every day and I did what I was supposed to do, that, I would bounce back. Because, I did believe in myself. I know the type of athlete I am. It was just a matter of putting in the work. As far as training with COVID, it's a little different. Gyms are closed. You got a distance. Can't really be inside around that many people. But so I've done what I needed to do to kind of get my garage set up. So I kind of got some workout equipment in my garage so that I can stay, active whenever the gyms do shut down. And just keep myself ready. So it's been a struggle for sure. And I was getting ready for my rookie season last year with the Rattlers right before COVID hit for the first time. So I had to wait a whole nother year and just go back to training. But it's definitely built some resilience and some perseverance for sure that I think, will carry me going forward in life.
From listening to your story and your background and where you are at, and look, I've been out there watching all your videos, right? And earlier you mentioned about bursting off the line, and there's one specific video that there is a clear delineation between what you bring to the table and probably what an average speedster brings to the table. You kind of burst off the line, did a stutter step, and you took off again and broke into a dig route. So I'm like, okay, wow. Okay, now we're talking some business here. This guy is getting after it and really showcasing his speed. So with that in mind, and for the listeners out there, head coaches, general managers, owners, whomever is listening, what do you want to tell them about what you bring to the table as a player and how you can benefit their organization and why they should sign you to a roster?
Number one, first and foremost, I think with being a man of faith, and I've shown I can persevere and kind of overcome a lot of obstacles. So I think that is a testament to my character, first and foremost. But secondly, on the football field, to be honest, I was the best player in Pop Warner. I was the best player in high school. I was the best player on my college team. I train with NFL players every offseason, and I don't see it being any different once I get to that level, to be real with you. It's just going to be a matter of getting the opportunity and just having the chance to show myself. Because my route running, my hands, my football IQ, everything is there. And so, like I said, I really just think it's a matter of getting those right eyes on me, and I think, I'll stick.
Good deal. Hey, what better way to showcase that level of confidence also? Confidence in your ability to bring various attributes to the table, to an organization. So for a lot of you head coaches and owners and general managers out there listening in to your director of player personnel, those of you listening in, I will tell you, go to Isaiah's Twitter account, go to his LinkedIn page, go to his Facebook page. You will find a plethora of video on this young man and what he brings to the table. And I tell you, Isaiah, on behalf of the folks here at ESPN 1600 and our team here at the Extra Point, we wish you nothing but the best and look forward to hearing your name being called out on a Sunday. So good luck. Thank you for being here on the Extra Point.
Thank you for having me, and it's been a blast. Great to talk with you guys, and thank you for giving me the chance to kind of sell myself. I really appreciate it.
Good deal. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Isaiah Houston, wide receiver, free agent, looking for that shot in the NFL. And once again, you got to check this guy footage out. He has insane speed and great hands to boot. So once again, we wish him the very best. So talking about the very best, let's start talking about what is going on currently in the season because, hey, look, in the NFL, there's a lot of teams who've already locked up playoff spots. Some of them have already locked up division titles. Having said that, there are some really good teams out there in the wild card chase that I believe could upset the apple cart. So let's kick it over to Indiana with Jeremy. Jeremy, any thoughts? Any wild card team out there potentially that may upset the playoff scheme? What are your thoughts?
Well, first I'd like to point out there's still some very interesting division races going on. The Rams and the Seahawks are fighting for the NFC West crown at the moment. So right now, the Seahawks currently are the odd man out. They are the top wild card in the NFC. So, I mean, they are a team that's very capable of getting hot with Russell Wilson in that offense. He's got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson is coming back. That was a big deal to get some stability at running back going forward for that team. Seattle's as dangerous as anyone as they can be. Their defense still remains to be seen whether they're up for a long offseason push. But I'd say that Russell Wilson and the Seahawks are probably the most dangerous wild card team right now as we look at this week's standings for the NFC playoffs.
Well, I'm going to go with another team as the most dangerous wild card team, and I'm going to go to a team that we talked about a few weeks ago, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, we all know the Brady Arians feud, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it.
Something like that.
I don't think it's too big of a deal. These are two of the best guys at their jobs. They have a top 5 defense at every level. They're elite. JPP heads that defensive line. You got Devin White heading the linebacker position, and that secondary is as good as any. Carlton Davis, a good long corner for Todd Bowles, and the offense is, we all know what it is. It's probably the deepest offense in the whole league. You got Tom Brady. Most people consider him the best QB ever. He's got the rings. Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. This team is loaded. We talked all year about COVID and not having an off season and these guys not having chemistry. As the season goes on and as they get to the postseason, chemistry is only going to get better. So I think come January, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could upset some people come playoff time.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Justin. I definitely agree, and I definitely put all the stocks in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team moving forward. I think, Tom Brady, and just like you mentioned about the chemistry, I think Tom Brady and these receivers are clicking. Chris Godwin is back. Scotty Miller is getting, to play a little bit more football, especially when Antonio Brown got signed. So I think this Tampa Bay team is, can definitely make a run for a deep run in the playoffs, but can also make a run to win the Super Bowl. And we've seen it's only been 5 to 6 teams, wildcard teams, who actually, went on to win the Super Bowl. The last will be the Green Bay Packers beating, the Pittsburgh Steelers winning that Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, and Antoine Randall kind of threw that touchdown. So we have some sneaky good teams in the wild card race that can actually win the Super Bowl, but I'm right there with Justin, and I'm going to pick Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All righty. So, Tampa Bay is definitely, I think a lot of folks out there are probably thinking Tampa Bay is going to be one of those teams that's going to definitely upset the apple cart. They will knock off a lot of teams and make a good push into the playoffs. I'm going to throw an oddball out there. And based on what has happened in the last 2 weeks, some might say, well, wow, Roland, that is not a great pick. But what I'm looking at is moving into the future, and that is the Raiders. When you look at last week and that, last-minute Hail Mary, let's call that was a give me, right? Then the week prior, literally getting trounced by the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, absolutely trounced, 43-6. Having said that, before they lost those games, let's be honest, they played one hell of a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Derek Carr had a good rhythm going. The running game had a good rhythm going. They were getting the ball to Waller a lot, but then they went away from that. So I think they got to get back to the basics of starting that run game strong, getting Waller definitely involved earlier and not later. For whatever reason, in the last couple of games, they're getting him involved way too late in the game. Now, there are some things playing against them. They just fired their defensive coordinator a couple of days ago. That's not a good start, right? But when I look at, and on top of that, Ruggs just went on the COVID list. So he's not going to be playing for a couple days here. But when I look at the rest of their season, the next 2 out of the 3 games, they have the Dolphins and they got the Broncos. So I think those are easy wins potentially for the Raiders if they go back to the basics. With that strong run game, getting Waller started immediately. If they do that and if Derek Carr can play solid football like he did in the very beginning of the season, I believe that they could make a push. But once again, they got to get back to the basics. They started the season extremely strong, played the Kansas City Chiefs extremely strong, but for whatever reason went into Atlanta, and I don't know what team showed up there to Atlanta, but it definitely was not the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know what team went and played the Jets, but it definitely was not the Raiders that started out strong. So we'll have to wait and see. Once again, this is a crazy idea, right? This is a crazy idea by me, but I do believe that the Raiders could be a team that upset the card. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you got to look at my colleagues right now because they're looking at me like, what in the world, Roland? The Raiders? Are you kidding me? So I'm curious. What do you guys think about the Raiders right now? Or did those 2 games that they lost, is that basically telling everyone, hey, this team has lost it. They've lost the groove. Derek Carr cannot find a good rhythm, and the Raiders are pretty much kaput. They're out.
Well, what I'd like to say is you thought that they would have an easy win over the Miami Dolphins. Ask anyone who's played the Miami Dolphins this year. They have been anything but easy to beat. They have a very good defense under Brian Flores. And while the offense isn't quite there yet with Tua Tagovailoa, that's a team that's going to give you fits week in, week out. You're starting to see kind of the New England defense mold kind of down there in Miami, where they try to take away your best player. So if Ruggs can't play that game, they're going to take away Darren Waller or they're going to take away Josh Jacobs. That team struggles when one of those two doesn't produce.
That's a very true point. They do struggle when they don't produce. So Raiders offensive coordinator better get to work. What do you say, Justice? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy. I almost jumped out of my seat when you said the Dolphins were an easy win. I mean, they have played above and beyond expectations this year. Xavier Howard has played phenomenal. He's going to be a Pro Bowler. He's got 9 interceptions. He leads the league. The defense is cooking on all cylinders for the Dolphins. One could argue that the Atlanta Falcons were an easier opponent than the Miami Dolphins, and they got blown out by them. So I agree with you. They played Kansas City very well early on. They beat them, actually. They beat the Saints in week 2. That was a shocker game, or week 3. They played well early on, but I think down the stretch, Derek Carr has kind of faded off. I agree. They kind of do this weird thing where one game they go all in on Waller. Next game, they completely ignore him. I don't get that. I think Ruggs has been very, spotty. He hasn't really lived up to that top 15 pick. So I think this year they might fade off towards the end. But if Mike Mayock can, get back to the drawing board and add a few more pieces, they can make a run next year, I think.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And you use the word spotty, and I'll say that they've actually just had spotty games. They get a good rhythm going, and they'll pull off a great win. And then they'll go into the next opponent, and it's like, what, did you guys practice this week? Like, what are you doing on the field right now? Especially the way they played again. They actually made the Jets look like a legitimate team. And I think we all know, Justice, the Jets are not a legitimate team. They are about Pop Warner as Pop Warner comes. So when I look at this, I'm like, wow, man, let's go back. Let's forget about those 2 games, right? Let's take those 2 games. Let's put them in isolation. Now let's go back to the first 4 games, maybe even the first 5 games that the Raiders played. They played some of the best football that we've seen. But once again, it was because Gruden had a great balance of the run game, running across the middle of the field, a lot of passes in the middle of the field, using the sidelines with Waller and his big size. And then for whatever reason, they maybe overthink game plans. And for whatever reason, they go away from that. And then, they walk right into a very much struggling Atlanta team. And they get blown out as if they didn't even show up to the stadium. So, but I do believe if they can get back to the basics, they could be a team that could upset the Frenches there. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Roland. When, this Vegas team is clicking on all cylinders, I think they're definitely one of the toughest outs. But just like Jeremy and Justin said, they kind of been going away from the basics, just like you pointed out. Josh Jacobs has kind of been banged up the last couple of weeks. So outside of Darren Waller is Nelson Aguilar probably saying that. But it goes to show you that they really don't have the weapons on the outside. So John Gruden kind of have to dial back the game plan. And just like you said, Roland, kind of stick to the basics and get Josh Jacobs rolling. Play action with Darren Waller and Nelson Aguilar off top of that, and just play consistent defense. So I'm right there with you. But when you mentioned, the Dolphins being an easy win for the Raiders, I'm just like everyone else on this panel. I'm just like, what are you talking about? This Dolphins team has had some great football, but the Las Vegas Raiders are right there behind them if they can kind of get everything going again.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely looking forward to some of the upcoming games, especially when they go in and play the Dolphins, when they play the Broncos. We'll see what actually comes of it. So I also want to let the audience know, looking forward to our next episode, the Extra Point Fan Experience. And this is where you, the fan, will have the opportunity to send us a question that's on your mind about anything that's going on in the NFL or the NCAA. And if your question is selected, who knows, maybe you might get some ESPN or the Extra Point swag. Once again, thanks for listening in to the Extra Point. We are beyond excited to have you listening to us week in and week out. We hope you all have a happy holiday season. And once again, we look forward to the fan experience next week here on The Extra Point. Have a great week.